Tonight, we're diving into one of New Jersey's most disturbing legends, a place where history, tragedy, and something far darker seem to overlap. A place locals warn you not to visit after dark, a place that feels wrong the moment you step near it. This is the Devil's Tree of Bernard's Township, so settle in. Turn off the lights, and let's begin. I grew up hearing about the Devil's Tree the way other kids heard about the boogeyman. Whispered warnings, half-yoking dares, and the kind of stories adults dismissed but never quite denied. But I didn't believe any of it until the night I saw the tree breathe. It was late October, the kind of cold that feels older than winter, like the air itself remembers things you shouldn't. My friend Mark had just gotten his license, and like idiots, we decided to drive out to Bernard's Township to see the tree for ourselves. The road leading there was empty, the kind of empty that makes you feel like you are the last people alive. No houses, no streetlights. Just the headlights cutting through the dark and the pine barrens pressing in on both sides. GPS says it's up here, Mark muttered, but we didn't need the GPS. We felt it before we saw it. The temperature in the car dropped so fast the windows fogged. My breath came out in white clouds. And then the tree appeared in the beams of the headlights, a massive, twisted oak, standing alone in the middle of a clearing, like the forest itself refused to grow near it. The bark was blackened, scarred, almost burned-looking, and the ground around it was bare. No leaves, no grass, just dirt, dead, dry, and wrong. "Looks like a normal tree," Mark said, but like a wall. It wasn't natural cold, it felt heavy, like it was pushing against my skin. The air smelled metallic, like old blood. There were stories about this place: lynchings, suicides, a farmer who murdered his family and hung himself from one of the branches. People said the tree absorbed the evil of everything that happened here. Some said it was a gateway, others said it was alive. I walked closer, crunching over the dead soil. The tree loomed above me, its branches crooked like broken arms reaching for something just out of sight. "Touch it," Mark called. "People say if you touch it, you get cursed." I rolled my eyes, but my hand was shaking when I reached out. The bark was warm, not warm like sun-heated wood, warm like skin. I jerked my hand back. "It's warm? No way. Feel it." He did, and I watched the color drain from his face. "Dude, it's like it's alive." A wind moved through the clearing then, but the branches didn't sway, not even a little. The air moved, but the tree didn't. That's when I noticed the sound, a low, rhythmic creaking, not from the branches, from inside the trunk, like something shifting, like something breathing. "Let's go," I whispered. But Mark wasn't listening. He was staring at something carved into the bark. I stepped closer and saw it too, a name, scratched deep into the wood. Myers, the same last name as the farmer who killed his family. But the carving looked fresh. The edges were clean. No weathering, no age. "Someone must have done that recently," Mark said. But I knew they hadn't, because as we watched, the letters sank deeper into the bark like the tree was swallowing them. The creaking grew louder, then the ground beneath us shifted. Not like an earthquake, more like something under the soil was moving. I stumbled back. "Mark, we need to leave. Now." He didn't move. He was staring up into the branches, eyes wide, mouth open. I followed his gaze. There was something hanging there. A shape, a silhouette, swinging gently even though there was no wind. It looked like a man. I blinked and it was gone, but the rope was still there. A frayed noose, swaying softly. "Mark." I grabbed his arm. "We're leaving." He didn't respond. His eyes were locked on the trunk. His lips were moving, whispering something I couldn't hear. Then I heard it. A whisper coming from the tree. Not from the branches, not from the wind, from the bark. It was whispering his name. Mark, I yanked him back so hard he fell. The whispering stopped. The creaking stopped. The clearing went dead silent. Then the tree screamed. It wasn't a human scream. It wasn't an animal scream. It was the sound of wood splitting, tearing, cracking like the tree was trying to rip itself open. We ran. Branches snapped behind us. The ground shook. The air felt like it was pulling us back, dragging at our clothes, our hair, our breath. We didn't stop until we reached the car. Mark fumbled with the keys, hands shaking so badly he dropped them twice. When the engine finally roared to life, we tore out of there, gravel spraying behind us. Neither of us spoke on the drive home, but in the rearview mirror, I saw something that still keeps me up at night. The tree was standing at the edge of the road. Not in the clearing, not behind us. Right at the tree line, watching us leave, and its branches were moving, reaching, almost waving. Mark never talked about that night again. He moved out of state 6 months later, blocked my number, blocked everyone's. But before he left, he told me one thing. Sometimes, he whispered, I hear it. At night. Whispering my name. I haven't gone back to the Devil's Tree. I want, but sometimes, when I'm driving alone at night, I swear I see a twisted shape at the edge of the woods. Just standing there, waiting, and the air gets cold. Too cold. Like something old and hungry is breathing down my neck. That was the story. Now let's talk about the real history behind the Devil's Tree. If you drive through the quiet back roads of Bernards Township in Somerset County, you'll eventually come across a lonely field with a single massive oak standing in the center. Locals call it the Devil's Tree. And its reputation didn't come from ghost stories alone. It came from decades of real events, tragedies, and strange consistencies that people still struggle to explain. The earliest documented stories trace back to the late 1800s and early 1900s, when the area was still rural farmland. According to local historians, the land around the tree was once owned by several families, including farmers who struggled through harsh winters and economic collapse. One of the most persistent legends involves a farmer who, after losing everything, murdered his wife and children before hanging himself from the tree. While no official record names him, the story appears in multiple oral histories from the region, suggesting it may have roots in a real tragedy. By the 1920s and 1930s, the tree had gained a darker reputation. Bernards Township was rumored to be a place where lynchings occurred not as part of widespread activity, but as isolated acts of racial violence. Local newspapers from the era don't explicitly confirm hangings at the tree, but several historians note that Somerset County did experience racial tension and KKK activity during that period. The tree's isolated location made it a believable site for such acts, and the legend grew. The modern era of the Devil's Tree legend began in the 1960s and 1970s, when teenagers started reporting strange experiences. The tree felt warm to the touch, even in winter. Snow melted in a perfect circle around it, even after heavy storms. Car engines stalled when parked near it. And people who vandalized the tree claimed to suffer accidents or misfortune afterward. Some of these claims were investigated. The warm bark phenomenon, for example, has a logical explanation. Large, old oak trees can retain heat longer than surrounding vegetation, especially if the bark is darkened or damaged. The Devil's Tree has deep scars likely from lightning strikes, vandalism, and natural decay, which can cause the wood to absorb and radiate heat differently. The snow circle also has a rational basis. The tree stands alone in an open field, meaning it receives direct sunlight from all angles. The dark bark absorbs heat, and the roots spread wide and shallow, warming the soil. This can create a melt zone even when the rest of the field stays white. But not everything has an easy explanation. In the 1980s and 1990s, police received multiple reports of a black pickup truck that would appear out of nowhere, chase visitors away from the tree, and then vanish. Some believed it was a local farmer protecting his land. Others claimed it was something else entirely. No one ever identified the driver, and the truck was never traced. The township eventually fenced off the tree and posted warning signs, not because of the supernatural, but because so many people were vandalizing it, carving names, chopping at the bark, even trying to burn it. The town declared it a protected landmark to preserve what had become a piece of local folklore. Today, the Devil's Tree still stands. Its bark is scarred. Its branches are twisted, and the ground around it remains strangely barren. Most historians agree that the legend grew from a combination of real tragedies, local racial violence, natural tree behavior, teenage dares, and urban legend culture, and the eerie isolation of the site. But even with all the logical explanations, people still report the same unsettling feelings when they approach it: the sudden cold, the sense of being watched, the urge to leave. And maybe that's the real power of the Devil's Tree. It's not just a piece of wood in a field. It's a place where history, fear, and imagination overlap. A reminder that some locations carry the weight of everything that's happened there, whether we can explain it or not.